The next item of business is a statement by Ivan McKee on GFG business operations in Scotland. The Minister will take questions at the end of his statement, and hence there should be no interventions or interruptions. And I call on Ivan McKee to make his statement. Up to 10 minutes, please, Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, I make this statement today to provide an update to Parliament on the status of the Scottish GFG businesses at Lochaber and DL. This statement, by its nature, touches on subjects that are commercially sensitive, and so I will be careful in my response to members' questions in order to avoid saying anything that breaches commercial confidence and may cause harm to those businesses and the workforce. We all, of course, want the same outcome across the Chamber to see these Scottish businesses thriving and providing good quality jobs. It's no secret that GFG Alliance has been weathering a storm since the collapse of Greensill Capital in 2021 and has been working to refinance its debts since the collapse of its main investor. In Scotland, GFG owns several businesses, including Alvance British Aluminium, Cymec Lochaber Hydropower, which operate the aluminium smelter and hydropower plant at Fort William, respectively. They also own the Liberty Steel DL Steelworks in Motherwell and their related site at Clydebridge in North Lanarkshire, which are not operational at present. Liberty Specialty Steels is an English business that has an insolvency case raised against it by creditors late last year. I understand that GFG Alliance was able to settle with some creditors and wishes to run a sale process for the company. There was an intervention by UK Government on 20th of August who provided a letter to the Court advising that if the Court was minded to appoint the official receiver, the UK Government would back this. On 21st August, the official receiver was appointed and took control of that business. Lochaber and DL have limited exposure to the specialty steel business, and their management teams have confirmed the insolvency of that business has no impact on their operations in Scotland. We are monitoring with interest the steps the UK Government has taken in relation to specialty steel. My officials are engaged with the relevant UK Government departments to understand their plans for the business. I want to assure members that we have contingency planning in place to cover any eventualities for the Scottish businesses. Our priority is to see them operational and employing skilled staff and providing economic benefits to their respective regions and across Scotland. Myself and the then Minister for Employment and Investment, Tom Arthur, met with Sanjeev Gupta on 12th of January this year and pressed him for information on GFG Alliance's refinancing. We discussed with Mr Gupta the challenges his business faced globally, and he reaffirmed to us his commitment to the businesses in Scotland. I've spoken with Jeff Cable of the GFG Alliance on the 9th of September, and he has advised me that GFG is working hard to support Lochaber's growth and, in the case of DL, have a credible plan for restarting operations in the coming weeks. I've also met with Community Union that represents workers at DL to hear their concerns regarding the plant. I am in agreement with them that we want to see the plant back up and running and we want to see people back at work. They have also said to me that speculation on the future of DL has an impact on the morale of the workers. I attended the Steel Council held by the UK Government, and I'm eager to see the steel strategy which is expected this August. I would hope that there will be an equal sharing of the £2.5 billion allocated to support the steel industry across the UK, given the level of intervention we have seen for steel businesses in England and Wales. An issue that has been raised repeatedly by the industry is in relation to energy pricing and how this impacts the competitiveness of the Scottish plants, and I'm also seeking clarity on this from the UK Government. I would like to state to the Chamber today that it was right for the Scottish Government to intervene to support the businesses at Lochaber and at DL. For Lochaber, we provide guarantees to protect those skilled jobs in the West Highlands, underpin additional investment at the site and promote industry in Scotland. Lochaber has over 90 years' worth of experience of aluminium making and is a national strategic asset. Under the ownership of GFG Alliance, the business has created 40 new jobs since 2016, and a total of 204 people are employed there today, supporting a valuable supply chain with hundreds of associated jobs. Our intervention has sustained this business for almost a decade. The guarantee was disclosed, including the full value of it and the total exposure and securities, to the Cross-Party Finance and Constitution Committee on 22 November 2016 and was indeed approved unanimously by the committee. The total exposure of the guarantee undiscounted is £586 million. Over the past 9 years, of course, this figure has reduced over time and all payments due to the Lochaber investors are up to date. The amounts guaranteed vary between 14 and 32 million per annum over 25 years, with 16 years remaining. We hold a robust set of securities, including the smelter, the hydropower station and extensive land holdings from which we could seek recovery if there was a call under the guarantee. The Scottish Government additionally continues to earn the expected income in the form of guarantee fee payments from the GFG Alliance. Indeed, we have earned many millions in fees since 2017. Without this deal, this income wouldn't have existed. No public funds have been spent under the guarantee. Lochaber is operating well and producing aluminium. The business has recently announced that it sold 1,000 tonnes of its output to the US, benefiting from the introduction of new US tariffs, and has committed £1 million to its summer maintenance programmes, which will see new equipment installed and improved efficiency measures. The Lochaber businesses have a combined turnover of over £816 million since 2017. Lochaber has produced over 300,000 tonnes of aluminium since 2017, and the power station has produced 4,480 gigawatt-hours of electricity during the same period. It was also during this period that it saw an upgrade to its grid connection, so it is in a position to sell more effectively into the national grid. It spent an estimated £52 million with Scottish suppliers and £112 million across UK suppliers in total since 2017, providing an economic benefit to the region and beyond. The business has seen £37 million of capital expenditure since 2017. It is a strong management team committed to the business and the local community, with an emphasis on providing benefits to that community, including planting 250,000 trees and 988 acres of peatland restoration since 2017. It has also spent £250,000 on donations and sponsorship. I know that members of the Chamber have been to the smelter and seen first-hand the good work done there, and have met with the workforce. Turning to DL, we intervened in order to facilitate the sale and to ensure the continued operation of this important industrial asset for Scotland as the last remaining rolling plate mill in the UK. DL did receive public sector support in respect of a £7 million loan from Scottish Enterprise to facilitate working capital, and they are currently in discussion with DL regarding repayment of the loan. The Scottish Government intervention resulted in the continued production of steel and maintained skilled employment at Liberty Steel DL. The plant has produced over 400,000 metric tonnes of metal since 2017 and generated revenues of over £280 million during the same period. DL paused production in August 2024, with their staff being placed on a furlough arrangement, which was agreed with the unions. This important step by GFG has allowed staff to be retained and put the business in a strong position for recommencing operations. I've spoken with members of the workforce recently, and I'd like to thank the entire workforce for their commitment. GFG Alliance have plans to recommence operations at DL to supply plate for naval warship building, and have been awarded a contract by Navantia with the opportunity to bid for more work in the near future from other customers. I would summarise, Presiding Officer, there are no immediate risks to Lochaber and DL from the court cases in England. We took steps in order to retain these historic businesses and ensure Scotland preserves the ability to produce aluminium and steel. Lochaber continues to perform well and is a major employer in Fort William, and DL has plans for a restart which will see it deliver steel plate for shipbuilding. We will, of course, continue to monitor developments closely, and I will update Parliament if a further significant development takes place. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. The Minister will now take questions on the issues raised in his statement. I intend to allow around 20 minutes for questions, after which we will move on to the next item of business. It would be helpful if those members who would wish to ask a question were to press the request to speak buttons, and I call Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and can I thank the Minister for advance sight of his statement, and indeed thank him for the statement which the Scottish Conservatives had requested due to concerns both amongst the workforce and the wider communities around DL and Lochaber, caused by the negative publicity there has been in the media around the financial viability of GFG Alliance. Sanjeev Gupta has a track record of broken promises. He said none of his steel plants would close and he would not give up on the workforce, a promise clearly already broken. At the time he acquired the Fort William complex, he promised not to break up the assets, and he also promised to transfer parts of the estate to the local community. Again, two more broken promises. And at the time, he promised what turns out to have been a pie-in-the-sky proposal to create 2,000 new jobs in an aluminium car wheel factory, with no thought, apparently, as to where the workforce would come from, or, for that matter, where they might live. Yet another broken promise. So can we really trust a word this man says, and should Scottish ministers be putting any much reliance on his statements? But let me also ask 3 specific questions about the content of the statement from the Minister. Firstly, the Minister states that the original exposure of the guarantee was £586 million, but has now reduced. So what figure does that guarantee now stand at? Secondly, in relation to the securities, what is the current value of these securities, and how does that relate to the outstanding guarantee? And thirdly, the Minister references contingency planning for the future of both DL and Lochaber. Is that a guarantee to workers at both plants that their jobs are secure?
Minister.
Thank Murdo Fraser for the questions. And just reiterate the point, if the Government hadn't taken the steps it had taken in 2016 and 2017, those plants would have been shut now for almost a decade. And I might be wrong, but I think you may have been on the Finance Committee with me at the point where we unanimously agreed that this was a good deal and should be taken forward. In terms of the value of the guarantee, I've indicated there are payments between £14 and £32 million being made every year. They've been made for the last 9 years. That value of 586 has been reduced. Clearly, that's moving on a quarterly basis. But as indicated at the start, there are some commercially sensitive issues here. But I will seek to be able to provide further information on that. And the same issue applies to the securities. That data is published every year, as you'll be aware, through an audit process, and the value of those securities are identified. So again, that does change depending on a whole range of factors, but that is published information. And with regards to the contingencies, yeah, I mean, I've been working on this in various ministerial roles for a number of years now, and there's extensive work happening within government, has happened within government, and using external advisors to make sure that we do have contingency plans in place for a range of options if there was to be defaults on some of those guarantee payments or other situation where we felt that had to be, we had to take further steps. And our commitment, I think, is demonstrated by our actions over the last 9 years in keeping the workforce at both the plants in employment, something which, as indicated earlier, if we hadn't taken those steps back in 2016, would not now indeed be the case.
Daniel Johnson.
Can I too thank the Minister for advanced sight and agree with him that our focus has to be about securing the sites and the jobs. And I'd also remind the Chamber that I'm a member of the trade union community. But while the Minister said in his statement there's no immediate risk to the taxpayer, given the meetings and the fact that we're having a statement, and indeed the fact that 15 GFG entities across 9 jurisdictions are in insolvency, there are clearly concerns here, particularly around DL, given that there are orders on the book, but the site is furloughed. Clearly, there is a working capital issue. So can the Minister confirm what is the likely forecast in terms of repayment of the loan to Scottish Enterprise? Is that going to be extended in order to provide that lacking working capital? And would that be contingent on some sort of equity in return? And also, can the Minister clarify, given the very significant contingent liability on that site to the Scottish Government if it were to cease, could he provide an updated statement on the scale of that contingent liability for clean-up? Thank you.
Minister.
So, a number of questions there. The order he's talking about at DL with regards to Navantia is moving forward. Again, there's commercial discussions happening in place, but the working capital for that, according to the latest information we have, has been secured by the business itself to enable them to start that production, and would hope to see that, as I said in my statement, happening in the next few weeks. So there is no plan to put more government money into, or no need to put more government money into to support that. The relationship between the loan for Scottish Scottish Enterprise and GFG for that £7 million plus the interest payments. Those discussions continue, but clearly it's in everyone's interest to get the plant back up and running so that it's in a position to be able to generate revenue and be in a position to not only support the jobs but in time to repay the loan from the public purse, which again I think we'd all agree was the right thing to do to keep the plant operating and paying wages. And with regards to the future, yes, contingency plans are developed. Clearly the Clydebridge plant is they're in discussions about the sale of that, and the DL plant were something to happen to GFG. And again, I must stress that the GFG Alliance as a group has been working through those challenges, but that hasn't impacted on the Scottish plants. But were something to happen, we do have contingency plans in place to be able to continue the operation there and to seek alternative routes for both the Lochaber sites and indeed the Dale site.
I call Rona Mackay to be followed by Stephen Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Minister mentioned morale of the workforce at DL. Can he provide any update regarding what steps the Scottish Government has been taking to support and communicate with the workforce and trade unions at this time?
Minister.
Yeah, as indicated, we've been in contact with the Community Union, and I met with our General Secretary, Roy Rickhus, in the last few days, and with representatives of the DL workforce, and heard from them that they were eager to turn to work, but of course, being on furlough for that period of time, people recognise that that is not an entirely comfortable situation. We all agreed that it is a priority for us to see DL up and running, and that we recognise DL as an important strategic asset for Scotland. I thank the workers for their commitment to the business despite the challenges over the past 12 months. These are people that have seen DL through different owners and difficult times. They remain committed to their local business, and myself and my officials will continue to work closely with them as the plans for the operational restart develop.
I call Stephen Kerr to be followed by Claire Hockey.
If I can ask the Minister to readdress the questions that Murdo Fraser asked, because he didn't actually give us any numbers. I think the numbers he was looking for in terms of current exposure is 286 million. But the valuation of the assets, which is the security against this, are from 2019. That is the most recent valuation, and it's in the company's accounts. And I think I have to refer the Minister to the comments that Murdo Fraser gave about the reliability of some of the information that we might be working with here. But can I further ask him then, in terms of contingency, in the event that something does befall the businesses here in Scotland, does the contingency that he's referring to, does that involve us making a commitment to the jobs in terms of the Scottish Government funding the business? And if that is the case, where would the budget line be that would cover that cost in that eventuality?
Minister.
Well, as I've indicated, the payments will continue to be made over that period of time in terms of the repayments against that guarantee, and those quarterly amounts. Every quarter that goes by, we're reducing the guarantee that's in place, which is obviously to everybody's interest. So it's in everybody's interest to keep that plant running, not least because of the workforce, but also because it reduces that liability on government. The value of the securities does change, and I say that data is published, but I can seek to provide more up-to-date information on that. There is an audit report every year that does produce information on the extent of the value of those assets compared to the guarantee. The contingencies we've developed, frankly, are to cover a range of scenarios. So depending on what actually happens for each of those plants, we would have different options at that point in time. We keep that information up to date so that we're able to choose the most appropriate option should something happen. And as I say, those work-through options are available to deploy in the unfortunate situation where they ever to be so. But as I say, it's in everyone's interest to keep the plant running under the current arrangement, which has continued over that period of time. And in terms of the workforce, I'll just reiterate what I said, and our commitment to making sure that those plants continue to operate has been witnessed by the fact that over those 9 years since the original deal was put in place, the original guarantee, we have secured those jobs and indeed grown the number of workers employed at the Lochaber sites, and will continue to do so.
I call Claire Hockey to be followed by Richard Leonard.
The Clyde Bridge works, which the Minister referenced in his statement, is in my Rutherglen constituency and it's not been fully operational for a number of years. However, it occupies a substantial footprint in Cambuslang. Issues of concern of historical land contamination and what impact this could have on both alternative use of the land and on the local environment have been raised with me by constituents. Can the Minister advise what, if any, discussions have taken place as to the future of the site?
Minister.
I appreciate, of course, that your constituents will be concerned about the status of the Clyde Bridge site. We engage regularly with GFG at group level and management level on the subject of Clyde Bridge, and I discussed the matter with Jeff Cable of GFG Alliance when I met with him on Tuesday. I understand that GFG is considering its strategic options for the site and recognises the environmental responsibilities associated with it, and will carefully consider that when assessing their options for the future of that site.
I call Richard Leonard to be followed by Emma Harper.
In March 2024, I asked the then Cabinet Secretary to make a full statement to Parliament on the Government's exposure to risk as a result of its arrangements with Sanjeev Gupta. I also called on the Government, in the interest of transparency, to finally publish in full details of all the deals it has done with Mr Gupta, the GFG Alliance and all of its subsidiary companies. Now, with a continuing investigation by the Serious Fraud Office into fraud, fraudulent trading and money laundering into the GFG Group, with further financial meltdown and with no audited accounts lodged with Companies House for years, will the Government now publish the details of those deals?
Minister.
Well, first of all, in terms of the SFO investigation, obviously not in a position to comment on that. It's not for us to comment on that. The business is taking steps to audit accounts, but again, company law, as you know, is not a devolved matter. And we have published the information on the deals as far as we can within the limits of commercial confidentiality. Indeed, we've spoken about it, and there's a series of numbers in my statement that talk to that. But the important point is that the plants continue to employ the workers, they continue to add value to the local economies, and we as a government have taken the steps that have prevented their closure through the proactive steps we took back in 2016, which if we hadn't done that, I think Mr Leonard, along the rest of us, would be sitting in a situation where those plants wouldn't be operating, and that is something that obviously none of us would have wanted to see. So I think we've done the right thing, and we'll continue to ensure that those plants continue to employ workers.
I call Emma Harper to be followed by Lorna Slater.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Given the level of intervention we've seen for steel business in England and Wales, and the news that UK Government took control of Liberty Steelworks in Yorkshire, can the Minister provide an update on his discussions with the UK Government and his calls for equal sharing of the £2.5 billion allocated to support the steel industry in the UK?
Minister.
Yeah, I met with the former Secretary of State for Scotland, Ian Murray, and the former Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Jonathan Reynolds, just on the 22nd of July this year. We were all agreed at that meeting that the DL Steelworks has a unique position as one of the last, as the last plate mill in the UK, and I raised with them the £2.5 billion funding that is available to support steel across the UK, and we all agreed that it was in the best interest of the workers and for steel production in the UK that the business gets back up and running. So I mentioned in my statement, my officials are regularly engaged with the Department of Business and Trade in the UK Government to understand the steps they are taking with regards to Liberty Specialty Steel. And I also attended the Steel Council meetings chaired by UK Government and advocated for fair sharing of those funds in that forum. I will be writing to the newly appointed Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Peter Kyle, and the newly appointed Secretary of State for Scotland, Douglas Alexander, to ensure that they are as committed to DL's future as their predecessors were, and indeed as the Scottish Government is, and that Scotland receives its fair share of the funding, given this is the last plate mill.
I call Lorna Slater to be followed by Jamie Green.
The metals industry in the UK has been described as being in paralysis as the GFG companies face criminal prosecution for years of failing to disclose their accounts. This is surely a cautionary tale of allowing the concentration of key industries into the hands of a single, powerful, wealthy man. The Minister says there are contingency plans in place to cover any eventualities. Does that mean that the Scottish public money may be required to bail out this possibly criminal billionaire, or would the Minister propose nationalising key assets under new management?
Minister.
Well, as I've indicated, we have contingency plans in place, and it's also worth noting that with respect to the Lochaber site, far from public money being spent on that, we've actually received many millions in fees as a result of the guarantee that we've put in place, and those payments have been made up to date against those payments to the bondholders. So that is the situation. If something was to happen, as I've indicated, and we've been watching this very closely for a number of years, then we do have those contingency plans to step in and take appropriate measures. I wouldn't want to talk through the detail of that now because of the commercial confidentiality, but I hear very clearly the comments from Lorna Slater, and she can rest assured that we have taken into account all the issues that she's raised.
I call Jamie Green to be followed by Willie Coffey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The problem is the Scottish Government has never really been upfront about its dealings with Mr Gupta. We still don't know whether the £7 million loan from Scottish Enterprise will be repaid. We've got no idea when the plant will be operational again. And there are still far too many unanswered questions from today's statement, which really tells us nothing, I'm afraid. Can I ask, first of all, will the Minister be willing to publish the minutes of his meetings with Mr Cable and Mr Gupta of this year? Secondly, does he believe that the company actually have the funds necessary to buy the materials needed to fulfil the Navantia order, which seems to be the current impasse and the reason why the workers are furloughed? And finally, I didn't hear any mention of the new billet facility at Lochaber, which we all know is much needed for the future success of the business at that site.
Minister.
Yeah, well, I mean, in response to the member's question, the £7 million I've indicated that Scottish Enterprise are in discussions with GFG with regards to that loan, which again I think we'd all agree was the right thing to do. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation, because the plant would have been shut for many years now. And as indicated in answer to earlier questions, it's important that the business gets up operating and generating revenue so that they are in a position to repay that loan. Also indicated in my response that the company is anticipating reopening the plant within the next few weeks to supply that plate to Navantia, and the company has indicated that they have resolved the working capital issue to allow them to be able to do so. And of course, we'd all like further investment in Lochaber, of course we would, but we've really got to recognise the fact that if it hadn't been for the steps that the government has taken, and again I repeat with regards to Lochaber, we've not spent any public money, and indeed we've received fees worth many millions in addition to all those guarantee payments been made over that 9-year period. If it hadn't been for that, then again we wouldn't be having this conversation, because that site wouldn't be here either.
I call Willie Coffey to be followed by Alexander Stewart.
Thank you. The Scottish Government has previously provided much needed financial assistance to prevent the closure of the site at DL. But could the Minister say any more about how we're working to make sure that the interests of both the workforce and the financial interests of the Scottish Government are being protected as we go forward?
Minister.
Yeah, Liberty Steel DL, as we've indicated, received public sector support in the form of the £7 million loan from Scottish Enterprise in 2017, which was vital to ensuring the business had a future. We engage regularly with GFG Alliance at group level and at management level for both Lochaber and alongside Scottish Enterprise with DL to understand their ongoing performance, challenges that the businesses are facing and what steps they're taking to deal with those. As outlined in the Chamber previously, following the collapse of Greensill Capital as GFG's main investor, we have well-developed contingency planning in respect of eventualities that may arise for either of those businesses. And given the importance of the businesses locally and because of our financial interests, I meet regularly with my officials to review those contingency plans.
I call Alexander Stewart to be followed by Paul Sweeney.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I hope the Minister can agree that it is encouraging to see that defence industry is a vital potential to the DL plant. However, more clarity is needed before we can have confidence in that hope. What is the credible plan for restarting operations at DL in the coming weeks, given that the plant has previously been unable to operate due to high costs? And how can we be assured this will meet the requirements of the new plate contract? Surely workers' morale will benefit more from clear transparency than from continued uncertainty.
Minister.
Well, As I said, I met with the union and representatives of the workforce in the last few days. They continue to engage with GFG and are provided with information to their satisfaction on developments as things are moving forward with that deal. Clearly, being a commercial contract, as a member will be well aware, there are not only confidentiality issues with regards to that, but clearly a number of issues that need to be resolved, taking it forward. But I think it's very credible, the company's position, that they will be restarting production in the next few weeks. Issues on working capital, as indicated, have been resolved, and the company has a number of other plans that it's working to execute to further increase production at the plant once that first contract from Navantia is in production and has been shipped.
I call Paul Sweeney to be followed by Claire Adamson.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And I certainly welcome the announcement of the impending restart of production at DL after a year's impasse because of the contract for the fleet solid support ships via Navantia. That's great news, but it's one we need to build on. The Minister had previously referenced the £2.5 billion fund set aside by the UK Government and the National Wealth Fund for steel investments. And I'd like to see the Government take a more proactive approach on this. So we know from recommendations from community and others
Do we have a question,
that
please,
there's
Mr. Sweeney?
a need for electric arc furnace direct reduction ironworks. Can the Minister assure the House that the Government is working on this to try and proactively develop these assets,
Minister.
not just proactively stand by?
Yeah, we're obviously very much be keen to have conversations regarding what the future of those plants hold and the technologies he's talking about, electric arc furnaces, is part of the future. Now, we can't have it both ways. You can't complain about the fact we've put public money in there and then complain we're not putting enough public money in there. But of course, we'll continue to work to secure a share of the UK Government investment for the steel industry across the country. And as I said, the first priority is to get the plant back up and running. But once that is indeed the case and they secure other orders from other customers, then of course we're very keen to talk to all parties, as indeed we are doing with UK Government, about the potential future for the plants.
I call Claire Adamson, who's joining us remotely, to be followed by Jamie Halcrow-Johnson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I thank the Minister for his statement, and the recommencement of operations at DL would indeed be welcome news for my Motherwell and Wishaw constituency. He mentioned the Navantia contract, but is he able to say any more about other prospects for bids for work from DL?
Minister.
Navantia are a well-established company and indeed have other investments in Scotland, and the output of DL and its workforce is well known in the market, and it's good that Navantia recognises this and on the back of that have placed an order with the plant. Given DL is one of the last remaining plate mills in the UK, it also has an important role in manufacturing supply chains across the industry, including clean energy, defence and shipbuilding, and we will be closely working with GFG, who are considering engagement with previous customers and indeed new markets in a similar manner to what they have done with Alvance British Aluminium in the US, which has seen favourable returns for that business.
And I call Jamie Halcrow-Johnson.
While I'm sure 2,500 new trees and 1,000 acres of peatland restoration are welcome, as Murdo Fraser highlighted, in 2016 Sanjeev Gupta promised 2,000 new jobs at Lochaber, only about 40 of which have been delivered. So can the Minister outline in more detail the growth envisaged for Lochaber, as discussed with Jeff Cable on the 9th of September? And did Jeff Cable make any promises on potential new jobs?
Minister.
I think the important thing to recognise that not only have we secured those jobs which wouldn't otherwise have been in place, the number of jobs has actually grown. All the payments have been made as required by the business over that period of time. Indeed, the Scottish Government has received a significant amount of revenue, and many millions, as a consequence of that deal, on top of those payments being made. So I think we should celebrate that as a situation we're in, and it continues to contribute to the local economy. The discussions with the business continue in terms of other markets that they're seeking to open up to further generate more business and revenue from that plant, and indeed further investment, which we would all like to see going forward.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the statement. There will be a short pause before we move on to the next item of business to allow front bench teams to change position should they so wish. Thank you.